What's up everyone, welcome to Drummer's Perspective. My name is Ben Todd and I'm here to help broaden your scope of what's possible as a drummer. Thank you so much for checking out this video here today. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe. That really does help me out and it lets you know next time I got a video coming out. Now today I want to share with you something that I've been doing quite a lot of in recent times, and that's getting a really good sounding drum mix very quickly. Right now I'm recording a lot of drum tracks for musicians and clients from all over the world pretty much, and what I like to do when I've finished recording the tracks is of course send them the raw files, but also send them a rough demo mix of the drums with their track to give them an idea of what the end result could sound like. Sometimes when you send just raw tracks of your drums, it's not exactly a very inspiring thing to listen back to from a musician or a producer's point of view. So I like to put together a rough drum mix of something that I think the end result could sound like, just to give them an idea of what the end product might be. Now, I'm going to preface this whole video by saying that I'm certainly not a mix engineer by any means. Whenever I release any of my own music or have a project that needs to be released, I always send it to a professional mixing engineer because the art of mixing is really its own thing altogether. These are just concepts and techniques that I've picked up over the years of recording from home. And there's certainly things that have been very beneficial to me in order to share what the end result might be for a drum sound versus just sending out raw tracks. So like anything where you want to get a good result very quickly, the key is really simplicity. And the techniques and concepts that I'm going to be showing you today are certainly not advanced techniques, but they're things, as I said, that have been very useful to me over my years of doing this kind of thing, and I really hope that they can be beneficial to you as well if you're interested in learning how to mix drums, or if you're in fact recording from home and you want to kind of learn more about what you can do with the mixing side of things. So thank you again for checking out this video. I really hope you get something from it, but for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy this little step-by-step process of how I go about getting a really good sounding drum mix very quickly. Before we jump into today's conversation, I want to offer you a free gift, and today that's my 7 Ways to Attract More Work as a Drummer PDF guide. If you feel like you're working on all the right things as a drummer, you're seeing some improvement in your playing, perhaps you're quite established in your music scene, but you just aren't out there working as much as you would like to, then this guide is perfect for you. Here I offer 7 ways for you to reapproach your trajectory as a drummer and give you a fresh perspective on how you might be able to attract more work as a musician in general. Best thing about this guide is that only one of the tactics involves picking up a pair of drumsticks at all. So if you want to get out of your rut, get out of that feeling of being a little bit stuck, and just look for some fresh approaches to realign where you're going as a drummer and as a musician in general, then please head to drummersperspective.com/7ways and grab that free downloadable PDF guide right now. Alright, so what I've got loaded up on the screen here is a track that I just finished recording for someone. So all of the individual drum stems are completely raw. There's no effects or processing on them whatsoever, but they are balanced, and the gain staging is correct, but I will check for phase, of course, as well, because that's a very important step for mixing. But to start off with, yeah, you'll see that what we've got here is a kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, rack, floor, hi-hat, channel, overheads, which are stereo, and a room mic, which is a ribbon room mic that I use that just helps give a bit of room ambience to the overall drum sound. So what I like to do, well, I guess I'll just start off by saying, as I mentioned, all of the things I'm going to be sharing in this video are very simple concepts, but they are things that I pretty much use on every single drum mix that I send out to someone. Of course, they'll be modified and tweaked and adjusted to depending on the style of the song and the sound that the musician or the client is going for. But as a whole, everything I'm going to be showing you today is stuff that I do every day. So, with all of that being said, what I like to start off by doing is EQing. Now, EQing is super powerful, can totally change the sound of an individual track. So yeah, that's kind of where I like to start. And as mentioned, I don't have any outboard processing equipment on my drums at the moment. It's all just going straight into the interfaces, so they're very, very raw sounding drums. So we start off with the bass drum. So at the moment, all the levels are kind of set at -6, but what I'll do is solo up the bass drum and then basically go through each channel and EQ it to something that I think sounds good. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining how I go about getting the EQ or deciding on what EQ to use. There's a bunch of information out there already about how to best EQ your bass drum or snare drum or overheads or anything like that. What I'm just going to be doing is showing you how I do it and just kind of the overall process. So let's start taking a listen to this kick-in mic. All right, so I'll load up an EQ. Now the EQ that I like to use is the FabFilter Pro Q3. It's just one of the nicest sounding EQs out there. It's super malleable. You can just add infinite amount of bands, and also the thing I really like about it is you can solo the frequencies that you're adjusting, which is really handy when you're trying to sweep through frequencies that you want to, say, get rid of. You can hear very accurately what the EQ is that you're actually adjusting. So we'll start with this bass drum and just start messing around trying to get a good sound. All right, cool. I think that's kind of a cool starting place. So just some basic concepts that I am doing here. Actually, I'm probably get rid of that. That's a bit of a double up. Boosting the fundamental of the note, taking out some of the boxiness mid-range, adding a little bit of attack in the high end, and also rolling off a little bit of the super low ends because we do have a kick-out mic that can kind of take care of all that stuff. So that's what I do for kick-in. All right, let's move to kick out now. Basically, with a kick out mic, I take out all of the high ends and just leave the low end. I think that's a pretty good starting place. So now I'll listen to both of these together. Actually, I'll just take the kick out mic all the way down and blend it back into taste. All right, I think that's a pretty good starting point just there. Cool. So you'll see I'm moving through this pretty fast. Again, I'd be moving through it a lot faster if I wasn't explaining things as I went, but I like to try and just get a rough mix pulled together and then kind of go back and tweak and refine as I listen to it with the track. That helps me really fine tune some of the details of specific EQs. And like I said, this is just, this is by no means like an end result drum mix. This is just something that I send out to the musicians and clients and producers to give them an idea of what the end result could sound like. It's certainly not something that I think it should, sound like, but just something that is nice and clean and punchy and obviously stylistically correct for the song that I'm playing. So we'll leave the kick there for now. We'll come back to that in a minute. Snare top. We'll listen to this one for some EQ. Cool. I think that's a kind of an okay starting point. Similar to the kick in mic with the snare top, I'm trying to boost the fundamental note of the snare, take out some of the boxiness, and then add a little bit of top end sizzle, but not too much top end sizzle, because we do have the snare bottom mic, which is getting all the really high end kind of sibilance out of the drum. So we'll leave that snare top for now. Move on to snare bottom. And as you'll see, I like to roll off, low end on as many of the channels as I can, just to kind of clean things up a little bit. There's, arguments for and against doing this, but this is just what I've found to be to help me get a good result. Cool. All right, that's a pretty good starting point, I think. And again, similar to the kick channels, I'll start with just the snare top channel up and blend in the snare bottom to taste. I'll solo them. All right, I think that's a pretty good starting point. Now, moving to the toms. So with toms, you can't exactly just play the track through to EQ it. You have to kind of find a space where the toms play to listen to them. So we'll just find this little bit here. And loop that. All right, load up the EQ. Okay, so again, similar technique where I'm cutting the low end, boosting the fundamental, and then for toms, I like to cut the frequency just higher than the fundamental, because I find that helps the toms kind of cut through a little bit, and the main fundamental note that they have cut through the mix a little bit cleaner. So yeah, we'll stick with that for now for the rack tom, and then the floor tom, we'll find a spot for that. Okay. All right, I think that's pretty good for now for the toms. Move on to the hi-hats, and for the hi-hats, generally I roll off as much low end as I can, especially for the particular setup I was using for this track. There's quite a lot of bleed from other instruments, so I try and just isolate the hi-hat frequencies as much as I can by rolling off that low end. Cool. All right. Again, as a starting point, that's going to be okay, I think. So we'll leave that there and move on to overheads. Cool. So overheads, I like to boost the frequency of the snare a little, just to give it a bit more like air and presence in the overhead channel. And then, as you could see, roll off some of that low end rumble as well, and then add a little bit of high end sibilance for the cymbals and toms. And now move on to the room mic. First, actually, I think this level is maybe a little low, so I'm going to add a gain plugin just to boost it up a little bit. And then the EQ after that. So for this particular track and the sound I'm kind of going for, actually in general, I try not to mess with the EQ of the room mic too much, just because it is just the sound of the room. And if I do use it, which not all the time I do, but if I do use it, it just kind of gives a bit of presence and a bit of ambience to the overall sound. But yeah, for getting a quick kind of mix to send out to someone, I generally don't mess with it too much. As you see, just maybe rolling off a little of the low end and cutting a little of the low mid rumble a little there, but that's kind of it. Cool. So now we've pretty much got all of the EQs done on the channels. We'll start to get some levels, like some balance between the individual channels themselves. So basically what I'll do is take everything back down to 0 apart from the kick and start building the level balance from there. Alright, I'll get a place with the toms. Cool. All right. I think in general that sounds pretty balanced and pretty level. Next thing I'll go on to doing is a bit of panning. So now that we've found a space for the toms, I'll do a little bit of panning on the toms, and I like to mix from the drummer's perspective. had to do it. But yeah, seriously, I do like. That's how I prefer to mix, like pan instruments from the perspective of sitting on the drums. So usually rack tom is slightly to the left and floor slightly to the right, and same with the hi-hats slightly to the left as well. Cool. Okay, cool. I'm pretty happy with that. Everything else I just leave dead center. Kick, snare, overheads are obviously stereo, and room I leave in the middle as well. Cool. All right, so that's basically levels and EQ and panning. So the next thing I do for when I've got this kind of mic configuration and input configuration is run the 2 kick channels and the 2 snare channels through a bus and put a little compression on both of them. Now, again, there's arguments for and against compressing individual tracks or just the entire drum bus, or like this technique that I'm doing where I'm compressing the 2 channels, or all of the above. Again, this is just how I am doing it for these kind of tracks and these kind of mixes. So I select those 2 channels there and send them to a bus, and we'll call this kick bus. Cool. Now we'll take a listen to this and add a little bit of compression. So the compressor I like to use is either the Waves Renaissance compressor or the Waves CLA 76. But for this situation, I think I'm going to run with the Renaissance one. Of course, there's a ton of other compressors as well, and I use quite a variety of them as well. But for this kind of track, I'm going to go with the Renaissance compressor. And sorry, another thing I should say: when you're trying to get a mix quickly, don't be scared of presets either. Like I know there's some people who are kind of anti-preset, but there are some really nice presets that at least give you a starting point in terms of settings, especially for compressors, which can be a little bit of a dark art to understand to some people. So yeah, for this example, I'll start with a factory preset. So let's just load up. What do we got here? Kick mix. There we go. We'll start with this one, see how we go. So for a track like this, kind of pop rock thing, very general, broad compressor, gain reduction I'm going for is about minus 3 dB. And that'll be like on kick and snare. That's just enough to give it something, but not enough to be like distracting or give it too much character or anything like that that's going to be, distracting from anything else. Okay, cool. Now, obviously we'll go back and adjust everything as when we get the final mix together, but for now we'll move on to the snare and route the 2 snare channels, the snare top and snare bottom, through their own bus, and we'll call that snare bus. And again, load up a Renaissance compressor. Let's go try to find let's go snare top. Start with that, see how we go. Okay. Again, as a starting point, I think that's going to be okay. Then I also, one thing I like to do a lot, again, to get these mixes sounding kind of tight and punchy and some good energy quickly, is to run the overheads, add some parallel compression to the overheads. So what that basically means is that you're sending the overhead channel to a bus and compressing it quite a lot, and then blending in that compressed sound with the original overhead sound. So I'll just send that to a bus instead of routing it through a bus, and bring it up to 0, and then we'll call that overhead comp. And again, let's just go with the Renaissance compressor for now. And let's load up, let's see. Overhead option 1, let's go with that, see how that sounds. All right, so yeah, it's compressing quite a lot, but that's kind of what you want for this kind of thing, mixing like a very compressed sound in with the natural uncompressed sound. But yeah, you want to make sure it's kind of hitting it pretty hard to get the desired result. So I think that's cool for now. So what we'll do is we'll listen to the overhead channel and the compressed channel, but I'll take the compressed channel all the way down and then blend it into taste. Okay, cool. Let's go with that. These levels are going to be adjusted once we actually listen to the whole kit mix, of course. But yeah, just to get us going, this is going to be a good place, I think. So now, yeah, let's take a listen from the top with everything. So we've got EQ levels, panning, and now a little bit of compression just on the kick and snare and parallel compression of the overheads. If I was going to go down the route of actually trying to mix this thing, I'd probably add a lot more compressors and probably on individual channels a little bit more. But again, this is just how I go about getting like a good sound quite quickly. So let's take a listen. Cool. All right. I'm pretty happy with that. What I will do now is just add a little bit of reverb or like room sound. And again, I just add these for a quick thing. I just add it pretty much to the snare top and the overheads. So I'll set up another bus 4, and we'll call that verb. And again, for the sake of getting this done quickly, I use the same reverb, and I think that just gives it a bit more natural sound. Cool. So the reverb that I like to use a lot of the time is the Valhalla Vintage Verb, and for this kind of thing, I don't want it to be a huge verb, just something to give it some character and emulation. I just go for a drum plate setting and see how that sounds. So that's kind of a little much, but I think that's a good starting point. And now I'll just bring the send of the reverb down a little and blend it in as we need. Cool. All right, this is a subtle thing, but when you actually go to blend the drum tracks with the track that you're recording with, this is a thing that can kind of help bring both of the elements together and give it just take away the dryness and kind of rawness of like an untreated drum sound. I mean, a lot of times as well, I don't put any reverb on it as well. Of course, like I said in the beginning, depends on the track and it depends on the music entirely. But as a general thing, I like to set up these verb channels just if I want to give it a little bit of kind of depth and space in the sound. So now we'll add this quickly to the overheads. Cool. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Cool. All right, that's pretty cool. I'm happy with where we're heading with this so far. So the next thing I would do when if I was going to put the whole thing together is to add the track in, like the backing track that I got sent to record the drums to. I'd start to bring that in now and get the balance right between the drums and the track. And then once that's correct and I'm happy with it, then I add just two more things generally to help bring those two elements together. As I said before, reverb can help with that to kind of match the reverb sound of your drums to what you might be hearing on the backing track. But another thing that really helps glue the tracks and the drums together is using limiting and a little bit of tape emulation on the master bus, because everything ends up going through the master bus, drums and the track, and that can sometimes really help to glue the things together and just make everything a little louder and punchier in general, which if you, as I said in the beginning, these tracks are just to give a sense of what the end result and mix could sound like. And if you're just using it for that perspective and to hear what the drums sound like with the track, you want something that's kind of like punchy and like sounds cool to listen to and enjoyable to listen to. So that's where limiting and kind of a bit of tape emulation can help with that. So first, I guess we'll put the again, there's arguments for and against, and depending on the situation, you can choose whatever you want to do, whether you put the limiter first or the tape emulation first, or multiple instances of each. But for now, I think I'm going to go with the limiter first. So the limiter I like to use is again from Waves, and it's the L2. It's a pretty classic staple limiter, and you just want it to be kind of not going too much past 3 dB there, just because then it starts to get like the ducking weirdness effect, and you don't want that. This is just to kind of bring everything up a little bit and give it a little bit of glue. Cool. All right. I think that's cool for now. There are a couple of peaks that were kind of going a little over 3, so I'm just going to leave it at around -4 there. And then as far as tape emulation goes, another favorite of mine is J37 from Waves. This has got, again, like presets wise, like a lot of really nice sounding presets. One that is kind of a go-to for me. Where is it? It's number 47, mastering fat, tight, and open. So I'll just load that one up. Actually, I'll play a little bit without, and then I'll engage it so you can hear the difference. So you can hear with that, it's pushing it a little too hard, especially like the kick drum is kind of giving it a bit of a flutter effect. So you just want to back that off a little. So when you combine that, the L2 and the J37, like when you're mixing the drums and the tracks together, that really, like I said, helps to glue everything and kind of make it sound a little bit more cohesive and less separated, which when you're recording tracks for people from a completely different environment, completely different country sometimes, you want to make them sound, you know, a lot of the time like they're recorded in the same room together. So adding those couple of things on the master bus can definitely help to do that. So that's kind of pretty much how I go about getting a drum mix for a track. Like I said, every song is different, every track is different, so all of the kind of EQs will be slightly different, depending on what drums I'm using, depending on the style of the song. You know, everything is adjustable and can be tweaked, but the ideas and concepts that I kind of shared with you today, I pretty much use to some degree in whatever mix that I'm preparing for someone. So I really hope you've gotten something out of this. Again, I'm not a mix engineer by any means. This is just techniques and concepts that I've learnt for myself from study and watching other people do it and just messing around by myself. You know, this is a huge thing that if you have the time to do it can be really, really useful and beneficial just to mess around with, you know, settings and you know, experiment for yourself to see what sounds the best. You know, you can read every single book and study every single course, but there's a lot to be said for just spending time by yourself, you know, getting in there and tweaking things and mixing things and finding out what works for you in your individual space. But yeah, for now, I hope you've enjoyed checking out this video. I always want to learn more too, so if you've got any little tricks or tips that you use when you're mixing your drums to get a really nice sound quite quickly, then please put it in the comments below, because I really want to learn as well and hear from you guys and girls out there about how you're going about doing this kind of thing. But for now, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much once again for checking out this video. Please head on over to drummersperspective.com and sign up to the mailing list. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel here, and I'll see you next time on Drummers Perspective.